Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of BTTH Rebirth of Emperor Yang episode number 172 based on novel. So let's start. A day later, in the cave, Xiao Yan put away the medicine tripod. Suddenly, Xiao Yan was left alone in such a large cave space. This space could not help but become empty. Who? His lips opened gently, Xiao Yan slowly breathed out a breath, and then his closed eyes opened again. In the depths of his eyes, a sharp light flashed by. Immediately, in front of Xiao Yan, the void was slightly distorted, and the figure of Jiyu also appeared. Hehe, have you recovered your peak? Jiyu stroked his beard with one hand, glanced at Xiao Yan and said with a smile. Yes. Xiao Yan nodded. After several times of refining medicine, now, his strength has not only been completely consolidated in the later stage of the 6-star-and-a-half Emperor, but also the breath in his body has become much thicker. After recovering day and night, Xiao Yan has regained his peak state again, which shows that Xiao Yan at the moment can begin to swallow the different fire of refining and chemistry. His throat rolled slightly, and Xiao Yan had an unspeakable complex feeling in his heart. Hehe, well, now that everything is ready, it's time for me. Jiyu smiled coldly and sat in front of Xiao Yan. Suddenly, he just heard a puff. The forest white flame was burning on Jiyu's body. This time, it was different from usual. Under the burning of different fire, the flame was in the middle. Jiyu's original solid body was gradually weakened, and his soul, it seems to be burning gradually. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yan's heart can't help tightening. Looking at this, Jiyu is already burning his soul source. Once his soul source is burned out, the violent characteristics of bone spirit cold fire will be fully displayed. At that time, unless Xiao Yan can swallow it and refine it, not only Xiao Yan can't escape the sea of fire, but also the whole Shaolin Mountains are doomed to destruction. Boy, in a quarter of an hour, my soul will be completely burned. At that time, the bone spirit cold fire will lose control. Everything after that depends on yourself. Jiyu, sitting in the middle of the flame, smiled at Xiao Yan. The words in his mouth were heard in Xiao Yan's ears, which made the latter's eyes red. Jiyu laughed and said, "Smelly boy, a big man is always crying. Instead of being sad here, it's better to make psychological preparations. After all, I can only stand by and watch whether you can swallow the bone spirit cold fire or not." Guyo's laughter fell. Suddenly, the raging flame rising on his body became more fierce at this moment, and Xiao Yan also took back his emotions, tried to calm himself down, and tried his best to control his mood, so as to ensure that there would be no accident in the process of swallowing different fire. With the gradual stabilization of Xiao Yan's nasal breathing, all the thoughts in his heart were thrown out by Xiao Yan. Before a quarter of an hour, Xiao Yan's state has been raised to a higher level again. A quarter of an hour, it's time. Bang! A dull noise came from the strange fire, and the forest white flame suddenly became violent. In an instant, the powerful force filled the whole cave, which was called a terrible high temperature. Unexpectedly, the walls in the cave were forcibly melted into a pool of magma, carrying a terrible high temperature, and gradually spread. At the same time, even a snow peak outside have also been greatly affected. The snow peak on which Xiao Yan is located has accumulated 100 years of white snow, which melts rapidly under the terrible high temperature of bone spirit cold fire. However, after more than a dozen breaths, all the snow accumulated on the whole snow peak has melted, even on several nearby snow peaks. The outside world is still like this. The temperature in the cave is naturally higher and terrible. Fortunately, Xiao Yan has a different fire protection body. While the gorgeous flame wraps his body, he resists the bone spirit cold fire around his body. It won't be swallowed by the bone spirit cold fire in a short time. However, if Xiao Yan has been indifferent like this, it's hard to say the result. In such a large cave, with the gradual diffusion of bone spirit cold fire, the forest white flame is like a rising wave, spreading towards the four walls of the cave. The mountain melts at a speed visible to the naked eye from inside to outside. At the moment, Xiao Yan also raises his dark eyes and stares at the flame in front of him, a ball of mori white flame the size of a basketball, which is also the source of bone spirit cold fire. Staring at the body of the bone spirit cold fire in front of him, Xiao Yang waved his big hand, and the strange fire gushed out of the palm, so he wanted to wrap it up. Hiss, hiss. But when the strange fire in Xiao Yang's palm was about to approach the bone spirit cold fire, Xiao Yang's flame was quickly extinguished out of control. Xiao Yang was surprised, and then he reacted. His different fire is just a ball of fire for the origin of bone spirit cold fire. In the face of the latter, Xiao Yang's flame can support combustion, which is good. It's impossible to use it to refine bone spirit cold fire. Damn, I forgot this stubble. Different fire, as the emperor in the fire, the ordinary flame has no qualification to burn in front of it. Even in different fire, it also distinguishes its status by strength. Xiao Yang's sun fire can't compete with the bone spirit cold fire as the noumenon. It seems that I can only rely on my own strength. Xiao Yang bit his teeth, and the different fire can only be used to resist at most. Then the task of swallowing the cold fire of refining bone spirit can only be completed by Xiao Yang himself. Of course, in this process, the effectiveness of ice elixir is naturally indispensable. Power image resolution, Kai. Xiao Yang's body was shocked when his heart burst. His powerful strength immediately hit all over his body. In addition to casting the virtual shadow, he can naturally be applied to the noumenon, but there is no effect of ignoring the pain. Power image determination is extremely powerful for the blessing of physical strength. After exerting power image determination, Xiao Yang's overall quality of physical body from inside to outside will be improved to a higher level. In this way, Xiao Yang will naturally be able to hold back the erosion of bone spirit cold fire on the body. After finishing these, Xiao Yang slowly breathed out a breath and stared at the fierce flame in front of him. He took a big mouth and suddenly the suction surged in his mouth. Unexpectedly, he swallowed the source of bone spirit cold fire into his body. As soon as the bone spirit cold fire entered Xiao Yang's body, it immediately erupted into an extremely terrible high temperature. Under such a high temperature, even though Xiao Yang had exerted his power image and combined with different fire protection, it was difficult to resist the power of bone spirit cold fire. Soon, an extremely hot temperature gradually spread in Xiao Yang's body, and the internal organs and meridians wrapped by fighting qi were gradually covered by a layer of cold ice. The characteristics of bone spirit cold fire will not only release high temperature, but also completely freeze each other. Although the cold ice looks extremely cold, the temperature emitted from it is particularly terrible. Under the ice, Xiao Yang's internal organs and meridians gradually became hot and painful. Xiao Yang's originally calm face suddenly twisted at the moment of the outbreak of bone spirit cold fire. However, fortunately, with Xiao Yang's own tenacious and firm mind, he finally managed to support the severe pain. Nevertheless, Xiao Yang's monkey face also became red. Xiao Yang was forced to stabilize his mind, and his mind moved. In the cyclone in his body, the surging fighting spirit immediately swept out, showing the potential of a snare of heaven and earth, surrounded by the bone spirit cold fire that was wantonly destroyed in the meridians at the moment. As the original fire, the power of bone spirit cold fire is naturally not comparable to that of ordinary subfire. In the face of Xiao Yang's fierce encirclement, bone spirit cold fire also made independent defense. The roaring flame met Xiao Yang's siege without avoiding, and the terrible high temperature spread. Xiao Yang's meridians were quickly wrapped by the cold ice. The surging fighting spirit was also resisted by the cold ice, which made Xiao Yang waste a lot of strength. Only then did he remove the cold ice, but then the bone spirit cold fire rushed in and smashed Xiao Yang's fighting spirit. All of a sudden, the fighting spirit was broken, and the tearing pain gushed out of the body quickly, which made Xiao Yang almost have a feeling of pain. He had to do his best to urge the fighting spirit in the cyclone and continue to rush madly towards the forest white flame. Under this sharp pain, Xiao Yang's flesh and blood became red from inside to outside, and his whole body couldn't help shaking violently. However, with the passage of time, Xiao Yang's shaking body gradually stabilized. The bone spirit cold fire was smashed by Xiao Yang's angry madness, and temporarily stopped spreading. It was at this time that Xiao Yang, whose eyes were closed, suddenly opened his eyes. As soon as his palm turned over, One jade bottle fell into his hand. Xiao Yang did not hesitate to pinch and explode it. Then, ice elixir appeared in the palm of his hand and stuffed it into his mouth. The moment the ice elixir entered, it turned into a cold energy and quickly integrated into the body along Xiao Yang's throat. Then, the cold potion time spread rapidly in Xiao Yang's body. Wherever he passed, the bone spirit cold fire emitting the power quickly dissipated and spread to the mori white flame of Xiao Yang's whole body. However, within the time of the short video, he was pressed back to the cyclone in Xiao Yang's lower abdomen by Ice Lingdan. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang was overjoyed. The ice elixir was really magical. The bone spirit cold fire was helpless in his body, but he didn't think it was just this elixir that showed such amazing power. The ice elixir really deserved its reputation. In the cyclone, the ice elixir continuously emits a great power, forming a layer of almost solid ice blue energy barrier, firmly covering the bone spirit cold fire, and the vigorous power is constantly approaching the bone spirit cold fire, as if to extinguish it. However, in the face of such a domineering ice elixir, the origin of the bone spirit cold fire seemed to be angry. The forest white flame light suddenly burned violently, and a terrible smell of destruction was constantly emitted from it. Just as the medicine power of the ice elixir was approaching, a raging strange fire burst out from the bone spirit cold fire, burn up the approaching medicine in an instant. After burning all the medicine, the bone spirit cold fire rushed at the ice blue energy barrier like a broken bamboo, as if to break through it in one fell swoop. The sudden appearance of this scene also shocked Xiao Yang's heart, quickly mobilized the fighting spirit in his body, and wanted to come forward for support. However, Xiao Yang's worry was obviously superfluous. In the face of the sudden counterattack of different fire, the ice elixir also sent out a burst of bright light. At the same time, an equally terrible drug also swept out of it and quickly injected into the ice blue energy barrier. Then the next moment, the source of bone spirit cold fire collided with that energy barrier. A moment of collision made some cracks appear on the ice blue barrier, and at the same time, the momentum of the flaming bone spirit cold fire also decayed rapidly. The two are divided at one touch. This time, they are equally divided. But at the next moment, the ice blue barrier that had just emerged cracks suddenly shrank rapidly, and the cracks on it also recovered in an instant, and the ice blue light was more profound. Just as the bone spirit cold fire was about to break free, the ice blue barrier quickly wrapped the appearance of Sen white fire group and blocked all the hot energy. In a short time, the bone spirit cold fire might be difficult to break free of this barrier. For a moment, all the hot breath in Xiao Yang's body was annihilated. Xiao Yang also took this opportunity to quickly mobilize the different fire in the cyclone in his body, surrounded the bone spirit cold fire that temporarily lost resistance at the moment, and quickly turned into a flame medicine tripod. The gorgeous flame rose and refined crazily. Now the bone spirit cold fire has lost the power of resistance. What Xiao Yang needs to do now is to erase all the consciousness of the bone spirit cold fire itself, and then imprint his own soul brand. In addition, refining and fusion are integrated with all the different fires in his body. As long as this point is reached, the process of swallowing the different fires is completely completed. The huge soul power belonging to the third-order herbalist swarmed out at this moment, passing through the energy barrier, just like an invisible drill bit, straight into the source of bone spirit cold fire. This process is simple to say, but if it is done, it has endless trouble and pain. The pure soul power should go to the deepest place through the origin of the bone spirit cold fire. In this process, Xiao Yang's soul power must bear the ruthless baking of the bone spirit cold fire, erode into the origin core of the bone spirit cold fire, and erase that trace of consciousness. If there is any intention of retreat, all previous achievements will be wasted. This process is slow and long, but fortunately, the origin of bone spirit cold fire has been suppressed by the power of Ice Lingdan, and the power has weakened a lot. Although the process is still painful, Xiao Yang can bear it with his toughness. Erosion is going on very slowly, but Xiao Yang is not in a hurry. After all, different fire is the most destructive thing in the world. If you want to control different fire without paying a price, how can you get it? Giving and getting are mutually balanced. What's more, seeking wealth and risk and dealing with different fires is a dangerous thing in itself. Time, in this boring erosion, slowly passes, and Xiao Yang, like an old monk, is not moved by foreign things at all, condenses his mind, and throws all his attention into the dark white flame. Such slow erosion lasted for a month, and Xiao Yang's face became more and more pale, his eyebrows frowned, and sweat gradually appeared on his forehead. Looking at the bone spirit cold fire in the cyclone, now, the forest white flame is also gradually calming down, without the first very violent, which indicates that the trace of consciousness inside the bone spirit cold fire is being gradually consumed. Until a moment, in Xiao Yang's body, in the forest white flame in the cyclone, suddenly there was a slight click sound. With the sound, Xiao Yang's quiet mind also jumped fiercely. Looking inward, Xiao Yang quickly looked at the bone spirit cold fire in the cyclone. At the moment, the bone spirit cold fire is wrapped by the remaining trace of medicine in the ice elixir and is suspended in the cyclone. The forest white flame light is warm and peaceful. Originally full of aggressive and destructive bone spirit cold fire, after Xiao Yang's erosion for a long time, that thread of consciousness finally dissipated completely. Now this group estimates that you are cold, just like a newborn baby, and do not have any aggression. Finally succeeded. Seeing this scene, Xiao Yang finally couldn't help but show a relaxed smile on his pale cheek. In order to wait for this moment, he consumed nearly 1/3 of his soul power in this flame. If he didn't succeed again, Xiao Yang didn't know whether he could stick to it. Next, it's time to refine and integrate. With a smile in his heart, Xiao Yang concentrated again and thought a little. The huge soul force surged out again, wrapped the bone spirit cold fire that had lost the control of ice elixir, and slowly moved it into the burning method root and operated quietly. Refining the bone spirit cold fire without resistance consciousness is much easier than Xiao Yang imagined. This may be because the body has been burned by the damn flame for a long time, and Xiao Yang has adapted to the temperature emitted by this guy, but fortunately, this refining process is extremely smooth. Of course, the smooth return is smooth, but it has one thing in common with the erosion of falling heart inflammation consciousness, that is, it is still extremely slow. This is so slow that it even makes people feel like collapse. But fortunately, no matter how terrible the slow speed is, at least, it will always reach the end. This is enough for Xiao Yang to stick to it carefully. When the bone spirit cold fire was successfully refined by Xiao Yang, a joy slowly climbed out from the bottom of his heart, making the latter's Qingjun face full of a happy smile. Looking inward, Xiao Yang looks at the bone spirit cold fire flowing quietly in the meridians at the moment. Xiao Yang's heart is more happy. Now the bone spirit cold fire has been refined. Next, it's time to integrate. As long as the bone spirit cold fire itself is integrated with the different fire images in Xiao Yang's body, the two forces blend with each other, and Xiao Yang's strength can be improved at that time. The refined bone spirit cold fire is like a good baby in Xiao Yang's meridians. Xiao Yang's mind moves with his mind. However, the mere existence like this cannot make Xiao Yang really manipulate it. After all, before the bone spirit cold fire is fully integrated with the different fire in Xiao Yang's body, these are still two forces. Even if it can be driven like an arm, it will be very inconvenient in all aspects. Moreover, if it is not careful, it is uncertain that there will be a risk of different fire backfire. Xiao Yang dare not be careless about this. In the crystal clear and spacious meridians, the forest white flame surged like a tide. Xiao Yang's mind controlled the flame and slowly flowed along the meridians. After repeated cycles for several weeks, it gradually flowed through the meridians and poured into the empty air whirl of power. At the center of the cyclone, in the cyclone space, there was a little gorgeous fire shining from time to time, involuntarily releasing a faint pressure, which seemed to be quite resistant to the intrusion of bone spirit cold fire. Xiao Yang's mind moved and pressed down the gorgeous flame, but the bone spirit cold fire on the other side turned uncontrollably. Such a boiling left and right made Xiao Yang some separated and lack of skills. Although the soul power had all poured out, the two flames were not willing to calm at all. The mutual flame was also rising higher and higher in the end. Even Xiao Yang is a little difficult to control. Seeing such a scene, Xiao Yang couldn't help but be stunned. How can it look like two hot-tempered women arguing about their status? They don't want to let anyone. It seems that Xiao Yan doesn't have the right to speak in this cyclone space. It's just the two of them. With a helpless sigh, Xiao Yan will no longer give the two groups of fires a chance to continue. After all, if it is delayed for a long time, Xiao Yan is also worried about whether the bone spirit cold fire will suddenly lose control. Therefore, he must take advantage of now and seize the time to fully integrate the two groups of different fires. When my mind moved, a vigorous fighting spirit gushed out of the cyclone space. After a circle along the practice route of burning dew, I poured it carefully into the cyclone and stood between the two flames like a boundary. Now, give me integration. He took a hard breath. Xiao Yan no longer hesitated. An order was issued from the bottom of his heart. With the issuance of this command, a strong spirit fighting light film was immediately covered on the two different fires, wrapped the two different fires respectively, and forcibly suppressed the momentum of the two flames climbing up. Then, under the control of Xia Xiaoyan's mind, the two flames wrapped by spirit approached slowly, and finally collided with each other. Boom! Although there was a fierce isolation between the two flames, when they collided with each other, they already made a deep and loud sound, and the hot temperature also rose rapidly in the of Xiao Yang. In the face of such a situation, Xiao Yang is calm. He has already predicted what will happen next. Xiao Yang, who has swallowed several different fires, can't be more familiar with this process. Carefully controlling the fighting spirit, Xiao Yang tried to isolate most of the two flames, and then approached slowly and touched them gradually. However, even though Xiao Yang's movements were so slight that it was difficult for the naked eye to detect, the two different fires so close still rolled violently, burning, biting, winding and rolling each other. Finally, it was like comparing with each other, constantly releasing a hot high temperature. Looking at that model, it was like if you didn't compare each other, you would never stop. However, over time, if you can carefully explore it, you can find that the flames touching each other between the two flames gradually blend together. The two flames are like two war-loving generals. They don't know each other. The two flames gradually merge under the touch of a long time. In this regard, Xiao Yang's heart is both excited and nervous, but he calmed his mind and waited patiently for the blending of the two flames. In the cyclone, a huge and pure vigorous fighting spirit is continuously injected into the two flames, trying to maintain the balance of the two flames, so that they will neither explode nor stop collision and blending. Time flows rapidly in such a slow fusion. Invisibly, even Xiao Yang himself forgets the existence of time. He gazes at the two flames slowly blending in the cyclone. In the outside world, at the bottom of the volcano, the four people closed in the depths of magma also wake up one by one. Boom! The whole Shilin mountain range is shrouded in dark and dense dark clouds. The thunder is huge and the momentum is amazing. Even some strong people in Shilin area have also found the situation here. At that time, the strong human beings in Shilin region couldn't help boiling up, and the abnormality in Shilin mountains spread rapidly. The existence of this dark cloud lasted for a full week. During this period, many strong people in Shilin region saw that there were human figures flickering in the deep sky of Shilin mountain range and collided with the shocking thunder falling in the thundercloud. Although they were far away, they still felt the terrorist power from the thunder. This is imperial robbery. Warcraft is crossing the Emperor's robbery. It is said that there are 3 powerful warcraft in the depths of the Shilin Mountains. They are in charge of all the warcraft in the Shilin Mountains. Look at the imperial robbery. Is it one of them who is crossing the imperial robbery? Soon, the story of warcraft crossing the Emperor's robbery in Shilin Mountains spread in Shilin region. If the story about Shilin Mountains were put in the past, the 4 families would be indifferent. Only this time, they were very careful. Especially when they learned that the Emperor's robbery had lasted for a week, the senior leaders of the 4 families immediately silenced. The reason is not that they have no action. On the contrary, they are secretly sending people to sneak into the Shilin Mountains to explore the situation. In the end, the top leaders of the 4 families got the answer that there were 4 9-star and half-emperor warcraft at the same time in the depths of the Shilin Mountains. When the strong people they sent found each other, the other party had become emperor, and even nearly found the people of the 4 families. The 4 people crossed the robbery at the same time and turned Qi into emperor, which could not help but make the four families fall into deep thinking. For people cross the robbery at the same time. Is there really such a coincidence in the world? The key is still in the same place, which is the most suspicious in people's hearts. Is it because of Xiao Yan? As soon as this idea was raised, the four families immediately became agitated. They all knew that Xiao Yan, as a third-class medicine refiner, would not have any pressure on refining imperial pill such as Emperor Robbery Pill. If Xiao Yang traded Emperor Robbery Pill with high-level warcraft in Shaolin mountain range, it would make sense for the four people to break through the argument of fighting Emperor at the same time. No wonder Xiao Yang disappeared for more than 2 years. It turned out that he was hiding in the Shaolin mountains. With the warcraft of the Shaolin mountains as a cover, even the strong human beings did not dare to go deep. Naturally, no one could find his trace. Act smart and think we won't find you. However, although the people of the four families thought of this, they had not started yet. The four families stood still and waited silently for the day when their young dragons broke out of their cocoons. Time, in this boring fusion, slowly passing. Xiao Yang's body is like a sculpture. Even his breath converges into his body. If it is not for the occasional breathing between his nose, I'm afraid anyone will think it's a dead man. Unknowingly, another year. Inside the cave. The fusion of different fires in the cyclone in Xiao Yang's body is also gradually coming to an end. Now, it can be seen that there were originally 2 groups of flames with different colors, but now they are all fused together. In the center of the 2 groups of flames, a group of white flames is wrapped with gorgeous colors, rising slowly, and the smell from them, it is more powerful than the forest white flame and gorgeous flame next to it. I don't know how much. At this time, the breath in Xiao Yang's body finally fluctuated. A powerful energy radiated from the fusion flame in the center of the cyclone and gradually filled Xiao Yang's whole cyclone space. Finally, it poured into the meridians, followed Xiao Yang's burning formula skill route, and then returned to the cyclone space again after a week. Xiao Yang's real power was gradually improved in this endless cycle of refining. The strength of the 6-star and half Emperor's later period rapidly increased. Soon, Xiao Yang's breath has reached the peak of the 6-star and half Emperor's later period, and there is not even a sense of stopping. He broke through the 7-star and half Emperor and chased 8 stars in one fell swoop. 3 months later, Xiao Yang's breath has reached the middle of the 9-star and half Emperor. However, this momentum still has no intention to stop. In a hurry, unknowingly, the strange fire in Xiao Yang's body finally returned to calm. The bone spirit cold fire and those gorgeous strange fires finally completed the integration. At this time, a more huge energy breath suddenly poured out of Xiao Yang's body. Half a year later, Xiao Yang's strength reached the peak of the late 9-star and half Emperor, and finally broke through to the fighting Emperor. All this seems so smooth. It can be said that it comes naturally without a pause. The drawback is that this process is a little long. However, after a long time of waiting, Xiao Yang's strength is also real. I just don't know what will happen if Xiao Yang's idea is introduced into others' ears. You know, it takes more than 10 years for people with good talent to break through the 6-star and half Emperor to fight the Emperor. People with poor talent are not necessarily for hundreds of years. On the contrary, Xiao Yang has broken through the 6-star and half Emperor to fight the Emperor in one fell swoop in recent years. This is actually not satisfied. How can others face up to this idea? However, what is more unimaginable is that although his strength has reached the fighting Emperor class, the huge energy gushing out of Xiao Yang's body has not stopped. In other words, Xiao Yang's strength still has room for improvement. But it was also at this time, tens of thousands of miles away, somewhere in the middle, in a dark mysterious space, several figures were standing scattered. In the middle of this space, there stands a strange mirror. The reason why it is a mirror is that its appearance is the same as that of a common mirror, but it is several times larger than that. Moreover, the most surprising thing is that this mirror, which should have been smooth and reflective, is abnormal and appears unusually dark and profound. In the dark mysterious space, several human shadows are standing in it. At this moment, surrounded by the center of the people is a huge mirror, but unlike ordinary mirrors, this mirror looks extremely dark. On the frame of the mirror, there are many mysterious runes that people can't understand. Invisible, you can see some scarlet blood-like light on them. They flash over from time to time on those runes, which looks quite strange. On the back of the mirror, it is also filled with strange runes. The only difference is that in the center of the back of the mirror, there are 3 mysterious patterns. The 3 patterns are intangibly pieced together, which seems to be a whole. Around these 3 patterns, there is still a blank area without depicting anything. I don't know whether the person who created this mirror had no time to depict it or deliberately kept it like this. At this moment, one of the 3 patterns is emitting a faint light, flickering and beating slowly. As for the 2 next to it, it may have been flickering, but it is dimmed for some reasons. This time, you must find the key. If you can't find it, you can't leave any more disasters. Suddenly, in the darkness, there came a gloomy and extremely utterance. After hearing this, all the people present were trembling. The only 2 semi-imperial strongmen in the field were creeping down with fear, kneeling on the ground without lifting their heads, and their bodies were shaking. Go and get the key back. I'll guarantee you'll never worry again. The gloomy voice of the words came again, and the hearts of the 2 semi-imperial strongmen were suddenly overjoyed. As usual, they were just like fleas. No one would look down at them. Now they finally had the opportunity to turn over. How could they not be excited? The voice was excited and said thanks. Immediately after that, a black light suddenly shot out of the darkness behind the people, like an arrow, and soon disappeared into the huge mirror. Then, with the injection of this black light, the dark mirror suddenly twisted, but after a few breaths, a faint suction gushed out of it, making the void in front of it slightly twisted. At the moment, the 2 semi-imperial strong men also slowly climbed up and looked at each other. Then, before they came to the mirror, one of them, a grey-haired old man, carefully looked at the mirror in front of them, and immediately thought. In his mind, he separated a wisp of soul power and put it into the mirror in front of him. In a twinkling of an eye, the old man frowned slightly, and a touch of pain appeared between his eyebrows. The wisp of soul power he had just injected was forcibly swallowed by the mirror in front of him. You can't measure your strength. You want to see the end of it. A man in black standing next to him suddenly opened his mouth, and his words were full of disdain. Hearing this, the bodies of the 2 semi-imperial strong men couldn't help trembling again. Except for the 2 of them, the rest of them were powerful people, which they couldn't afford. Of course, it might be just now. When they returned, it might not be certain. With the vision in their hearts, the 2 old men turned their eyes and fell on the mirror in front of them. After a little hesitation in their hearts, they jumped into the distorted space like a black hole in front of them. Looking back, look at the western regions, Xiaolin mountains, and caves. At this time, Xiao Yan is still immersed in a long state of cultivation. At the top of the mountain, generally speaking, the imperial robbery should have appeared long ago. However, because Xiao Yang's promotion road has not stopped, the time of the imperial robbery has been delayed. However, this does not mean that the imperial robbery will not come. With the passage of time, the breath in Xiao Yang's body has gradually stabilized in the early days of the first Star Emperor, and is still getting stronger and stronger. At the same time, in the Xiaolin region, several young masters in the future within the 4 families are also struggling to cultivate. Virtually, an invisible competition has been established between several people. Everyone is doing his best to increase their own strength. Of course, in addition to becoming stronger, the most hope of the 4 families is to catch Xiao Yang and shake their majestic power. As for the 4 main gates, although there are some small moves between them, they seem to ignore the current Xiao Yang. Of course, maybe someone is observing in the dark, but no one knows. As the saying goes, there is no time for cultivation. In a twinkling of an eye, another half a year has passed in a hurry. Looking at Xiao Yang's strength, he has actually reached the 2-star fighting emperor. However, it seems that this cultivation has not come to an end. Even though his strength has reached the early stage of the 2-star fighting emperor, seeing Xiao Yang's breath, he is about to enter the middle stage of the 2-star fighting emperor. At the same time, Xiao Yang was pleasantly surprised. At the bottom of his heart, he couldn't help but feel a faint pain. It seemed that something had been touched in his heart. Cultivation is still going on, but Xiao Yang's mind is shaking without warning. Although this is not enough to affect Xiao Yang's strength improvement, Xiao Yang can't relax in the end. Finally, until one day, Xiao Yang's strength finally broke through again, and until now, the magnificent energy in the cyclone in Xiao Yang's body has been gradually refined. Looking at Xiao Yang's strength, it has reached the peak of the later stage of the 2-star fighting emperor, even if it is only one step away from the 3-star fighting emperor. Of course, Xiao Yang can use that energy to break through the 3 stars fighting the emperor, or even a stronger level. But Xiao Yang knows better that only by practicing steadily, step by step, can he get really powerful power. He blindly seeks power and forgets the route. Such power will only affect the road of cultivation in the future. Therefore, although Xiao Yang's strength was finally suppressed at the peak of the later stage of the 2-star fighting emperor, by contrast, Xiao Yang's strength is not necessarily worse than some strong people who have been in the later stage of the 2-star fighting emperor for many years, or even worse. This is the advantage of solid foundation. Facing the strong people of the same level, his own foundation is the place that can be really used to compete. However, just when the breath in Xiao Yang's body had just stopped improving, a slight fluctuation suddenly came from the depths of Xiao Yang's mind. In an instant, in Xiao Yang's dark eyes, there was also a flash of light, a touch of cold light, and passed away like lightning. This video will end here.